Welcome to the podcast. I'm Erin Jensen, and today I'm so excited to be talking to Principal Zach Bauermaster. Now, it might have been a couple of years since you've been in school, or maybe more than a couple, but what's great about Zach is his ability to show up for his students and his teachers. You might have seen his videos on Instagram. They've gone viral, where he greets his students with a fist bump, sometimes a high five, sometimes even a little hip check. And they just have the biggest smiles on their faces because they feel seen. They feel like they have someone that they can trust at school.
And part of what I've seen since these videos have gone viral, it's not just about school. Like, it's in workplaces, it's in homes. People desire to feel seen and connected, and people are longing for encouragement.
So I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation that I had with Zach and hear his perspective and his tips on how you can show up and be more present at work and at home. And it can really impact someone's day. Obviously, I'm an entertainment reporter.
Yeah.
I'm not anything to do with school. But, I saw your Instagram, and one of the things that got me, and we were actually just talking about it, is like you can be so tied to a to-do list, and like that is my tunnel vision of these are my tasks for the day. And I love kids. I have two nieces. They're my whole entire world. So, but in elementary school, there's so many students, there's so many teachers, and you make the effort and the intention of making them feel seen with just, a high five or a fist bump. And so I think that's so moving because I imagine, too, as a principal, you have a giant to-do list. So that's why I wanted to chat with you. I just feel like that's so applicable for other people. Like, okay, how can I show up at work and how can I be present? And are there little ways that I can identify that I can positively impact someone's day? So that's why I'm so excited to chat with you.
Very good. I'm excited.
Right. Okay, so tell me about your motivation then for these intentional interactions that you have that we see on Instagram and have gone viral.
Yeah, I think it's just that idea of trying to create a school environment where kids want to come. I think too early kids say, I don't like school. So for a place where kids want to come, but as a principal, it's important to create a place where staff want to be as well. And then a place that families trust and are proud to send their kids. And I'm a parent. I have three kids. And I remember when my oldest daughter, Olivia, was going on the bus for the first time to kindergarten, just 5 years old. I had been an educator for 8 years. And my wife, Carly, and I walked her to the bus stop. And as a dad, you want her to walk up those bus steps, but you also want her to grab on your leg and not let go. Yeah. But when the bus came, she marched right up on the steps. The steps were bigger than her. Her backpack was bigger than her. And the tinted windows, you could barely see her head as she waved and drove away. Mm. And Carly and I cried the whole way back. And I just remember that we were sending our very best to school. And we wanted the school to give Olivia their very best. And so I take that into my work, where families are sending us their best every day. Everyone's best looks different. And as a principal, I want to be able to give them my best, but I also want staff to be at a spot where they can give them their best as well.
So like I mentioned before, though, I imagine as a principal, you have a long to-do list. How do you find that balance and make that time to be so present for your students and your staff?
I remember a time when I couldn't wait to get home for the weekend. It was a Friday. And one of the reasons I couldn't wait to get home was to get caught up on rest and to get caught up on work. And I remember my wife, Carly, when I got in, she said, I don't want to see your laptop out this weekend because of always getting the computer out, always working. And the next day I tried to wake up extra early and get my laptop out. And she saw me, and it just turned into a thing. It was an uncomfortable Saturday morning. But I remember following her, and she pointed to everything that needed to be done. The kids were younger at the time, the dirty laundry, the toys on the floor. And she said, Zach, do you know if I just focused on finishing one more thing all the time, do you know what would suffer? Our relationship would suffer, and our relationship with the kids would suffer. And that's something I keep in mind. There's always a to-do list. There's always one more thing to be done. But those days that I go in and I complete a to-do list and I walk out and I realize I didn't really connect with anyone, I don't feel too good leaving. But those days I don't get anything done, but I had some great connections. I walk out feeling very encouraged. But part of that is time management, because I want to be as visible as I can at school. I want to greet kids at the door. I want to be stopping into every classroom. I want to be present in the cafeteria and the hallways, but I still do have to get work done. So I find I do wake up very early. I get a lot of work done very early, and then be strategic about it. There are times where I think it's important. Hey, I do need to go in the office and do a little bit of work. And the reason I'm doing work is to help the teachers be at a better spot as well, to make sure they have everything that they need.
I love that. And so, what does a high five or a fist bump do for a kid? We were talking before this, and I remember I was such a goody two shoes. If you can't tell,
Yeah.
because I'm wearing plaid today,
Yeah.
but I was such a goody two shoes, and I was like, "Oh, am I intimidated by my school principal? If she knew my name, then
Yeah.
it was because I'm in trouble or a frequent visitor to her office."
Yeah.
So, but you have such a different relationship with your kids. What does that attention do for them?
Yeah, I think it's just, and we talk about it a lot. It's called Fist Bump Friday, and I want them to know what a fist bump means. It is encouragement. We talk about if you hold your hand up, you have these individual fingers, and they're weaker by themselves. And when you go like this, it's stronger together. And I talk about how a fist, it can be used for good for a fist bump, but of course we know a fist can also be used for bad. And we just talk about that idea of encouraging, lifting each other up stronger together. But as you mentioned, it means a lot of things. It's not just good morning. It's not just, hey, awesome job. Life is hard. Life is really difficult. So it means I see you. I'm in your corner. I'll have tough conversations in the office where maybe even a kid got disciplined, but before they leave, I'll give them a fist bump that says, "Hey, I'm still with you. I don't look at you any differently." And sometimes, like that example you were just giving, you never know what a principal, some people might be nervous around a principal. And sometimes I have those tough conversations, but the next day I want to make sure I seek the kid out and I give them a fist bump. That idea, like, hey, we're going to move forward now. So it's just that idea of I'm in your corner every step of the way. And it's just a simple way. It's just a simple way to greet people. And I play, so every Friday, it's called Fist Bump Friday, but we do fist bumps every day. And I don't know if you remember the song Friday by Rebecca Black, but I
Oh,
play,
okay.
yeah, I play that on morning announcements. Some kids love it, some kids hate it. So that's why
Uh-huh.
I do it. But
That's
it's
so
just a
funny.
lot of fun.
So that's the time when you fist bump them, and that's when Friday is playing on the speakers.
Well, that's where I say, I get on the announcements. Like usually there's a kid doing announcements and they'll say it is
Yeah.
Friday, August 15th. And I'll be like, whoa, did you say it's Friday? And I'll say, turn to the people around you, give them a fist bump, celebrate another awesome week. And we try
Oh
to
my
create
gosh.
a culture of encouragement. So then we actually have something called protein with the principal. And it's the teachers nominate people who are encouragers. And that
Uh-huh.
idea of protein making you stronger. So then we flex our muscles together in a picture. We have hard boiled eggs, string cheese, yogurt, fruit. So it's just a lot of fun to try to create that culture of encouragement.
That's so funny. Yeah, when I was in school, it was much more carb heavy, muffins
Yeah.
for mom and donuts for dad. But the joy of being
Yeah.
chosen to read the announcements and just like whatever they were serving at, just the joy
Yeah.
of being
Yeah.
able
Oh,
to
that's
talk.
exactly right. They love coming down there, getting little
Yes.
certificates. I talk about why they got nominated, and it is a lot of fun.
And as a kid, maybe, or, even in your life now, who do you feel like are the people that have encouraged you the most and what impact has that had on you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've been raised in a wonderful home. My mom and dad are just, they've always been like, here's how I would say with my parents, they've always shown up. They've always been there. And I know not everyone has that, but my parents have just always shown up. And even this morning, so I wrote one of the books I've written was called Lemonade. It's a children's book. And this morning, my daughter and I we had a reading and there was a local event at a library and there was a great turnout. And there was my mom sitting there and just there to continue to support. So they've had a huge impact on me. And I'll even bring that up, but my fourth grade teacher was there to see me this morning too, Mrs. Balderston.
Mm.
And even after I've left her class, she said for each kid, she's kept a file of, when they were in fourth grade, different things they did. And then if she saw them newspaper clippings, just followed them through life and different things that they were doing. And she would add to the folder. And one time last year, I got an email just unexpected. And it's at the end, it said, God bless you, Dr. B. I'm proud of you.
Oh,
And just how cool is that when we think of, like, I can name Mrs. Neff, Mrs. McCauley, Mrs. Gibson, Mr. Horton, Mrs. Balderston, and Mrs. Koff, all my elementary teachers. I can just rattle off their names because they had such an impact on me.
oh yeah. No, I
Yeah.
could cry. That's so sweet. Like, I mean, A, where does she keep all of those folders? That seems like so
Yeah.
much. B, the fact that she's kept up with you for however many
Yeah.
years, what, like 30 years?
Yeah. And then
Um,
today she had newspaper clippings with her and we got a picture
oh,
together. It was just really neat.
yeah, I remember my kindergarten teacher. She was the green teacher. And I remember, like, I loved learning so much. After school, I begged her for homework, and she let me, and that obviously
No, that's
ignited
funny.
more my love of learning. But yeah, I was like, what we're doing here is so great. Like, I need to do more of this. And
Yeah,
she gave me like little
yeah,
packets and color in
yeah.
the spots on the Dalmatian. It's all so important. And I know you tweeted, like, I just want people to understand how much you love your job. Like, you wore a Buddy the Elf costume to school, and you said, there's no other job, no better job than being an elementary school principal, and how much you loved your job. Why do you love your job so much? Does it just suit your traits and abilities, or why do you love it so much?
Yeah, and I think one time I put, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love with being an elementary school principal, and I don't care who knows it. So that
Yeah.
tradition started a few years ago. The day before Christmas break, I would wear a Buddy the Elf costume, and it sort of works for me because Will Ferrell's taller. I'm 6'3", 225 pounds. But I think it is that connection piece. Like that's what I love about it. Just I had a great experience at school. I know not everybody else did, but that experience where people can find their passions, people can find their talents, that people can find their gifts, and just to enjoy and just to have fun doing it. And I think oftentimes we can take ourselves too seriously, but we want to make sure we're having fun along the way. So I love to be able to be in a spot where I could make somebody smile or make somebody laugh. I have 3 kids. I'm full of dad jokes, but just create that spot. And I'll often say this. I often say a lot of things about education. I'll end it with it. And don't forget to have fun. Don't forget to have fun. Just that idea of creating that place where people want to be, and then also a place where people want to come back to when it's all said and done, and they're no longer in the school anymore. Like, hey, is it a place that they want to come back to?
So then when you're walking through the day or walking through the school every morning with your, bag of hard-boiled eggs and string cheese and whatever other protein you have on you, what are you intentionally bringing with you, like the energy, when you walk through those doors? What do you have an intention set for the day? Does it differ every day, or what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, and I have found this. There are days where I'm not feeling it every morning, and sometimes you want to stay in bed a little longer, stay in the car a little bit longer. But I find those days that I'm feeling like that, someone needs me the most, or someone encourages me the most. And I think my intentions for a day, I try every morning to make eye contact with every teacher and every staff member as I go around the building. Because as a principal, I never know where I'll get pulled. I never know what's going to come up. But I try to just be as visible as possible, letting people know I'm right there. And that's why I love to greet kids. I think about these 5 things every day: greeting kids at the door, stopping in, saying hello in every classroom, being visible in the hallways, being present in the cafeteria, and then being right there at the door as they're walking out. Like, hey, awesome day. Let's come back and do it again tomorrow. Just because of school, there's so much. Many families are unstable, and the school can be a stable place for so many people. And I think, even as I'm talking through it right now, that's what I really try to be and really try to create, that it's stable environment for kids. Because a school often can become that central hub for families and for kids to providing them the support and resources that they need.
And I know you like the verse, therefore encourage one another and build each other up just as in fact you are doing. I'm curious why that's one of your favorites. Obviously, it feels very on brand, but why does it speak to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I say back to my parents, I always say this: that there's never been a day I haven't known Jesus. And my faith is just so important. And that idea of that life is hard, and we're made to be in community and walk alongside each other. And I probably, it was 2015, everything looked fine on the outside for me. I was teaching at the time. I was a high school basketball coach. I was continuing my education. I was married to my high school sweetheart. I had 2 beautiful daughters at the time. And that was on the outside, but on the inside, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I would wake up in hot and cold sweats, and my heart would be beating. I started to go to the doctors to try to figure out what was wrong, and they weren't finding anything. I started to withdraw from things I normally liked. And it even got to the point, I wouldn't say I thought about taking my life, but I got worried I could because it just felt so out of control. And it was something I had never gone through, and I was battling anxiety and depression. And it was just crippling me, and I was keeping it all to myself, and it only made it worse. And then there was a time I was leading a meeting, a panic attack hit, and I got nauseous, actually causing me to pass out. And as I said, I'm a bigger guy, so I you can't really. sneak passing out amongst people. So I passed
Mm-hmm.
out, and then I remember just people saying, Zach, Zach, Zach. So I came to. And I remember it being a time where I felt so weak and vulnerable, but then it was a time that I realized then I'd never been stronger. And I had been in the Word of God, I had been in prayer, but I was still keeping this to myself. And I realized how much I needed community. And that's when I think about this word encourage one another. Like we need each other. And too many times we try to go about things on our own. And a mentor of mine said, don't fight your battles alone. And he said, who's coming with you? And he encouraged me just, who am I surrounding myself with? So that's what I aim to do. That's why those verses, if you think of Second Corinthians, where it talks about the God of comfort and compassion meets us right where we are, and the reason He does that so we can meet other people where they are. So I've walked alongside a lot of people now who have battled anxiety and depression, and just that overall idea of I try to think of it every morning: encourage, encourage, encourage. Who can I encourage today? And often when I'm struggling, I'll reach out to try to encourage people.
Mm-hmm. Because doing something for others, is always
Yeah.
such a nice feeling. And you have
Yeah.
written about battling depression and anxiety. And I'm curious, I know I've dealt with anxiety too, and it's hard, to sometimes to pinpoint what it was. But were you able to find any sort of cause of or root of your depression and anxiety?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I think honestly, I feel like I'm still unpacking all of that. There would have been a time when I remember a time I first talked about it. I was ugly crying. Like I couldn't even talk through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of what was happening, I was trying to find what is that one thing, if I just remove it or if I just do this, it'll all go away. And that never did happen. I do think, like for me, being in the Word of God, prayer, surrounding myself in community, but then the basics of eating right and exercise, like doing those things have been very helpful. And also just learning myself of when to step back, because I can just be go, go, go. And then
Mm-hmm.
I don't realize how much I'm wearing down. So making the time to step away, I think it's important for solitude. Sometimes I don't think we allow ourselves enough time to just think. We
Mm-hmm.
distract by a lot of different um, noise. Just not this past school year, but the school year before, I was having really bad difficulty breathing. And here I hadn't had asthma since I was a kid. And I went into the hospital for 3 nights because my oxygen level was so low. And the whole time I was on my phone, I was watching movies, I was getting extra sherbet cups. And then I went back home for a day and a half. And then I went back in with the same thing. I couldn't breathe. And this time I didn't have my phone. I kept the TV off. And I cried. Like I just cried and I needed to feel it a little bit more. And I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel. And I think that was part of it. And understanding, you know what, Zach, there are going to be times you're going to be anxious. There's going to be days that you feel lower, but you're going to be able to work through this. I started to think during the difficult time, I would call it my anxiety and my depression. I almost identified with it. And I don't do that anymore. I understand there are different seasons and different weeks that feel different, but I understand that it comes and goes, and I'm able to now work through that.
So what do you call it now? Just anxiety, but you don't put the my on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. And I'll even talk to people quicker. Like I have a group of friends I'm really close with, or my wife Carly. I'll be like, "Hey, I'm struggling a little bit low today.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've been a little bit
Mm-hmm.
low the last couple days." And just that's almost how I'll word it, and I'll continue. And I remember part of what helped me too. I did go see a counselor. I did go see a therapist, and I remember sitting there Googling it, and I felt like it was wrong. I felt like it was wrong to reach out for someone for help, but it was just a tremendous help.
Mm-hmm. Why did you feel like it was wrong to reach out for help?
I don't like I had this like that. I just had to be strong. I was married. I
Mm-hmm.
had I had 2 kids. I just got to be strong. I have to be strong. I can't look like I'm weak. And as I said, through this, I realized how much God was using it to strengthen me and soften and shape my heart. And I remember one time I was in waiting for a counseling appointment, and I was a teacher in the district at the time, and students were coming in, and they actually hid me in a side room, and I mean, that's okay too, but it's just interesting those things that we hide from,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's the biggest thing. I just felt like I needed to be strong, and I remember thinking. I got to be able to just snap out of this. I got to snap, like at some point I'll snap out. And it never just, there was no magic bullet. There was no magic fix just to snap out of it. It took time.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I've had, I don't know if I can label it a depression, but sometimes there's just like this sinking sadness where it just feels like I'm trying to swim to the surface with a cement brick, and it's like, you're
Yeah.
trying, and you just can't get that buoyancy. It's just like, you're being weighed down. But
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah, you want to snap out of it.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's just, and you're right. There's, I don't want to say it's overused, but I feel like we all experience anxiety and depression in some ways, and people have it in different ways. But it's not the anxiety I was experiencing. It wasn't like I'm just worried about tomorrow. I'm not just worried. It was just, it was physical, and yeah, it was a lot of physical symptoms along with it.
that's so hard. Well, I'm glad that you are able to manage them today, or they're not so bad today.
Yeah, and I think part of it, if tying it back to, and I remember
Yeah.
telling my principal when I was teaching after I'd passed out, and he said, Zach, out of all the people in this school, you're the last person that I would have expected to be going through this. So that drives me, like that
Mm,
drives me in what I do to be an encourager, because we may not know everyone's story, but it's important to know that everyone does have a story.
that's so true. And what will we notice if we're not, if we're bypassing them to get to the class or the office or whatever it is and
Yeah,
not paying
yeah,
attention?
yeah, the to-do list. I call it the yellow light. When we get to yellow lights, we're
Yeah.
supposed to slow down, but what do? Speed up. And when we're going fast, things are blurry out of our peripheral vision. But when we slow down, things become more clear. And then, for example, let's say I'm walking down the hall really fast, one place to another. If I just stop and turn, go greet that teacher, and you just never know what comes from that conversation. In one of my videos, I was walking really fast, and then these two kindergartners popped out, and the one we gave high fives, and then the one kindergartner was like, give me a hip bump. So I gave him a hip bump.
Yeah.
And this was really cool because I didn't see it in the moment, but I walked away. But after I walked away, they gave a hip bump to each other. And it just reminds me of what we're talking about. We can be moving so quickly and so much in a hurry, but if we stop, we can have an impact on someone, and the ripple effect that can have on somebody else.
That contagion for sure.
Yeah.
And then, just kind of touching still on that sort of like anxiety or like fear. You wrote in your book, Leading with a Humble Heart, as I continue to grow older and face new opportunities, fear tries to creep in and prevent me from letting my God-given light shine. So I'm curious, I always feel like it's a relief because I have so many doubts. I'm like, oh, good, other people are doing it. And like, he's
Yeah.
still doing things and they're experiencing it. So
Yeah.
how do you overcome the fear? How do you not let it stop you?
Yeah. I mean, it's always a work in progress. And I think about it like sometimes you just have to do things. Isn't it amazing when neat, really neat experiences or opportunities pop up and you're like, yeah, I want to do that. That's awesome. I'm going to do it. And then you step back and you're like, oh no, what if I can't do it? Like, what if I'm exposed here? Just this morning, I had an interview on Fox and Friends. And when they reached out and they said they wanted to do an interview, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And as it got closer, I was like, oh no. And then you start to think about what could happen. And then you just, it's just a battle. And then I think sometimes we can get the battle so much we're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or I'm not going to do that. And then we're hiding our gifts and talents that the Lord has blessed us with. And that's why it's really important to be in scripture, because I think the word, like God's word, is just encouragement for everything. Whereas it comes up like what we can fight back. And I love the verse that he didn't give us the spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. That fear and feeling timid, that's not from God, but he's given us the power and he's given us the gifts to use them. And that's like when I speak publicly, um, or if I go on a TV show, or if I'm on a podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's like I've learned just sometimes you are still a little bit nervous, but you keep moving forward and you keep doing it. Like when I step on stage, I still get that fast heartbeat. I still have some of those familiar experiences. It doesn't just go away. But I actually say two things, and I was just telling my wife this. You know, in Home Alone, when Kevin McAllister, when the robbers are coming, he says, "This is it. Don't get scared now." Right? I'll
Mm-hmm.
say that, but I'll also also talk to myself, and I'll say a little prayer, and I'll say, "Step out of your doubt and step into your calling," because doubt, that wants to keep us from our calling. So a lot of it is talking to yourself, but what I'm talking to myself is scripture that's been memorized.
Step into your calling. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And I'm like the biggest Home Alone fan ever, so I'm
Yeah.
totally, we quote it
Oh,
all the time.
yeah.
It
One
would
of
have
my
been my,
favorite,
yeah.
yeah. One of my
No,
favorite
we,
lines
this
is,
can be a Home Alone episode now. This is fine. We'll just go
I
back
like
and
it.
forth.
One of my favorite lines is in Home Alone 2 when
Yeah.
they're serving him ice cream and he says, "Two scoops?" He says, "Two scoops make it three. I'm not driving." I love
Hmm.
that line. I
I
love it.
literally, I texted that 2 days ago because
Um,
my brother and I love it. And my cousin found a photo of him and my brother in a Jeep when they were like, I don't know, 3 years old or something. And he said, like, what, my first day in the Jeep or something. And I said, oh, looks like a 3 scoop kind of night. He was like, I'm not driving. Yeah, that's one of the ones we
oh,
quote
I
all the
love it.
time.
I did it. My wife and I, we went on an anniversary trip and we were in Italy
Yeah.
and we got
Mm.
gelato every night. And I did that. I would get the three scoops, and I thought about Kevin every time. Make it three. I'm not driving.
There's, if you've ever seen You've Got Mail, they talk about how, like, The Godfather, like, it's the I Ching. There's, like, you can use lines for everything. I'm like, no, Home Alone. Like, what do you
Yeah,
pack? Buzz told you she paste toilet paper and water. Like,
yeah,
all of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Get on your knees and tell me you love me. Whatever you
yep,
need.
yep.
Keep the
Bring me
change
back
at whatever
something.
you need.
Yep, bring me back something French.
Anytime. No one has
Mhm.
ever brought me back something French. But, oh, well,
Yeah,
actually, one friend of mine went to Cannes and brought me back a shirt from there. And I was like, finally, something French.
that's awesome.
Um,
Yeah,
Okay, let's see. Okay, how did you get the idea to share your videos on Instagram
it's a great
or social
question.
media in general?
Yeah, so because I'll even be honest with people, I'm the one who pulled the footage, and
Yeah.
but my hope is that if you would ask any kids, parents, teachers, like that's what is happening in the building. And I just had these cool moments. I'm like, how can I share these with people? And maybe it encourages. So there's a lot of negativity in education. So I think of it as inside out. How can we show a school from the inside out? And it's been amazing to hear from some people who say they were a discouraged educator, but it encouraged them to keep going and it encouraged them to be more of themselves. Or somebody who wasn't going to go into education, but now is going to go into education. So I think once I got some feedback from some of the early videos, I was like, you know what, this is encouraging some people. And then there was the one that I put together fairly quickly, like 5 minutes before bed one night on a Thursday night, and I woke up the next morning, and it had just like it connected with people, it resonated with people, and I said to Carly, I said something's different about this one, and the one video has over 378 million views, 22.5 million likes, but it's not about views and likes. It's about the story behind each and the individual messages I get. And just that idea of some people did have people that they could relate to, and other people just wanted that moment and never got it. And they just feel like their whole life could have been different if someone noticed them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you too. Is like, why do you think it resonated with so many
Yeah.
people? I mean, for me, at first, I was like, oh, this is so, just on the surface, like, this is feel good and like, look what he's doing. But then it was like, look at the effort. What can you learn from him? Where can you apply that and, impact or affect someone? Stay with
Yeah.
this. It's not costing you anything, a little bit of energy and, your time and attention.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
why?
you're right. And I analyze things. So even I'm trying to really still break down why it's resonating with so many people. And I was after a speaking engagement recently, I was talking to someone, I was like, "Oh, it's really simple. Like isn't it amazing the simple?" And they said to me, in a kind way, it's simple to you. It's simple to you.
Mm,
So they encourage me to keep sharing those things because to me, even though it seems simple, those little moments that make a big impact on a discouraged world. And so I've really been able to unpack that where I get a lot of adults reaching out to me. They're still hurting and they're still looking for
mm,
connection. They're still looking for someone to notice them. They're feeling defeated. It's not just kids. I had one, a 42-year-old reached out. He said, "I'm a 42-year-old blue collar worker, and I'm crying watching this videos. It's given me so many feelings." And it said, "If you tell anyone, I'll beat the snot out of you."
uh,
Okay. So it's just been amazing to hear some of those different stories that come in, and I love hearing the stories where people respond with a specific name. They'll say, "Oh, Mrs. Balderston, she made that impact on my life. I remember this moment in her fourth grade class." So it's really neat to hear those stories too.
I know that you went to San Quentin recently. I'm curious what your visit was like and what you did there.
Yeah. So it was really neat. So I went with Love Does, Jody Luke's the president, and that was started by Bob Goff, and he's a writer and just someone I really look up to for his encouragement and that idea of love does, love in action. Just amazing time in San Quentin. And the time I went to San Quentin, it was at the time this video was going viral and I was able to talk to some people. And you know what I know? Remember we just talked about we don't make the time to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those incarcerated men have made horrible mistakes, and some may never get out of San Quentin, some may get out. But we sat in small groups and would go around talking about different topics, and those guys go deep right away. Like they don't have, you know what I sense? They don't have the distractions of the phone and social media. They're fairly secluded. There's a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and a lot of
They've got
thinking.
a
A lot
lot
of
of time to reflect. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of them know the Bible really well now, and there's not many surface level conversations. They go deep right away. They go deep right away. And it's just really encouraging. One story that stands out, there was a man I met in there, and he said we talked about like, what's your big dream? And he had been in San Quentin for a while, and it probably wasn't 12 for another 12 years until he'd be up for parole. But one of his dreams was just at one point to be at home and for his daughters to give him a mug that says "World's Greatest Dad." Yeah, they're just so many stories. And then one guy, as I was leaving, I said, "Hey, what advice do you have for me as I can walk outside of these walls?" And he told me to love my family well. And he said, before I came in here, I would have said I'm a family man, but I realized I wasn't a really family man. He said, if I get out, I'm going to schedule all these things for my family, and I'm going to keep them. I'm going to make sure everyone's going to them. And it was just real
I
encouraging.
love that. Okay, so then, we're talking so much today about, like being present and now making the most of your time. So, what would you tell people who want to show up differently, either at work or in their home life, to be more present and make those around them feel brighter, more seen?
Yeah. One tangible way, and I still need to work at this, is put your phone away. Be specific at times where you put your phone away. It's always like phones connect us with people far away, but they disconnect us with people in our presence. And it's an area I need to continue to work on. So that's one tangible way. But just really I think of the word intentional, being intentional. I think of the word purposeful. And I think of, like, I can picture, I lost my grandfathers over the last few years,
Hmm.
one in his mid 80s, one at 93. And it's the whole thing of we bring nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of this world. And when you see your grandfathers, when you see people on a deathbed and the families there around, like you just feel what's important, and you never want it to be too late. You just never know you just never want it to be too late. And I think a funeral is always humbling. A funeral is just always so humbling. So I'm an elementary school principal, but a seventh grader in our school district died. They went into cardiac arrest. The seventh grade girl, sweet girl, her mom works at the school as a support staff. And in the obituary, it just ended with encouragement. Just basically laugh with the people around you, love the people around you. And when she sent me a message, she just told me, like, I have two daughters and a son, but she just told me to hug my daughters tight, just hug them tight. And I just think about it as you ask that question. That's really, I need to remind myself daily, but just being intentional and purposeful in what truly matters.
No, that's true. I mean, we lost my aunt recently, and it was sudden, and she on July 11th, and my birthday is July 1st, and we had gone to lunch, and I was like, oh, this is such a normal feeling day, right? Birthdays, and I had different thoughts about that. But then, when you think now, oh, that's the last time, like the last birthday I'll celebrate with her, it's
Yeah.
just, and then her funeral. We're in Texas, so it was so hot, and for the visitation, people just came for hours, and they would hug you to give you their condolences, and they would just be wringing wet. Like, these people were just standing in the sun for her, and they just had story upon story of how she helped them, and her husband, of probably at least 30 years, was like, I don't even know who these people are, and she's just saying, oh, she held my baby when doctor said abort it, or she gave me right to work, or, whatever. Just, like you're saying, it's these moments that you're able to be there for people and show up for people with that intention. I think it's really beautiful. And I'm so guilty of like I said, being so married to this to-do list and less focused on, what am I bringing, what energy am I bringing into the room? How can I help brighten someone's day or something like that? So I'm just so excited that we can have this conversation. And I'm normally a crier, so if you look at other podcasts, I'm crying there too, so it's fine.
Okay.
Don't feel bad. But is there anything else that you wanted to chat about today, or that you're hoping to be asked today? I know you've been doing a lot of interviews, but is there anything else you want to hammer home?
No, that's great. I mean, and sorry about the loss in your family.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I mean, it's so sad and so beautiful at the same time when you talk about like that feud, like you just start to hear those stories, and like all those stories from that service or that viewing, and then that you can take away that idea of legacy. What legacy are we leaving? What legacy are we sprinkling in? And that's one of the reasons I like to write too, because I know my kids, Lord willing, their kids and their kids, eventually that maybe they'll see some of these books I wrote and they'll get an idea of my heart. They're like, man, who is this? Who is this old guy that's dead and gone? But just passing down my heart, the struggles, the things that have gone well. So I always encourage people to write too. Just start, whether you're journaling or I think everyone has a book inside of them, a story that they can tell from their perspective. So I just really encourage people to write. And the first thing to do, they'll often ask, what do I do? You just start writing. Get a notepad, open up a Google Doc, just start writing down.
If you liked that episode, please share it with someone, maybe even an educator who could use a little boost for the new school year. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.